All right, let's dive into the fascinating world of digital detective work. We're going to see how computers, even long after you think files are deleted and your tracks are covered, can be forced to give up their secrets. This isn't just about ones and zeros. It's about finding the digital ghosts left behind in the machine.
Computers don't lie. This isn't just some cool saying. It comes directly from a real case file, and it's pretty much the golden rule for digital investigators. People can lie, but the data they leave behind, well, that often tells the real story. So let's see exactly how that plays out.
So our story starts with a crime, a prime suspect, and a really clever alibi, one that hinged entirely on a single detail. What version of Windows was running on his computer? Okay, so here's the scene. A web server gets hacked. Investigators are on it, and they trace the attack back to a specific IP address. The web logs are crystal clear. The attacker's machine was running Windows XP. Case closed, right? Well, not so fast. They find their guy, and he flat out denies everything. He insists his computer has only ever run the much older Windows 98. Investigators are sure they've got him, but at first glance, his story seems to check out. So, how in the world do you prove he's lying?
This is how they did it. Buried deep on the suspect's hard drive, they found this little thing, a deleted boot.ini file. Now, this file is basically the instruction manual that tells the computer how to start up Windows. And even though it was deleted, you can see it, clear as day, explicitly referencing Microsoft Windows XP Professional. Bam! Just like that. With one tiny, supposedly erased file, his entire alibi was completely destroyed.
Okay, but hold on. That's the real mystery here, isn't it? How on earth can you find a file that someone deleted? And even if you do, how can you be sure it's legitimate evidence? Well, to answer that, we've got to pop the hood and look at how things really work.
Yeah, the answers to these questions aren't just sitting on the surface. They're hidden way deeper, baked right into the very DNA of the Windows file system itself.
And that brings us to this, NTFS, the New Technology File System. It's kind of the unsung hero of all modern Windows computers. The absolute best way to picture it is to think of a super organized, incredibly meticulous librarian for all the data on your computer. It was built to be tough, to recover from crashes without losing your stuff. And a fantastic side effect of that design is that our librarian keeps a detailed record of everything.
So to keep everything organized, our librarian keeps its own set of secret internal files, and for our investigation, the most important one by far is right at the top, the MFT, or Master File Table. You can think of this as the librarian's master card catalog for the entire drive.
So let's zoom in on this master file table. The MFT isn't just a part of the file system. You could really say it's the heart of the whole operation. And for forensic investigators, oh man, it is an absolute goldmine.
And when I say every file, I mean every single file. Your documents, your photos, system files, even files you think you've deleted. Each one gets its own permanent record in the MFT. Like we said, nothing gets past the librarian.
Now, I know what you're thinking. This looks like a giant wall of gibberish, right? But believe it or not, this is what a file's permanent record, its entry in the MFT, looks like to an investigator. And hidden inside all that data are the little clues that can expose a lie. So let's break this down into something a little more human. Each MFT record has a few key parts. There's a header that tells us if the file is active or deleted. There's the data attribute, which holds the actual content. But here's where it gets really interesting for our story. You've got the standard information attribute, or SIA, and the file name attribute, or FNA. And what's so special about them? They both contain timestamps.
Now, having two separate sets of timestamps might seem a little redundant, right? But for a forensic analyst, this little detail is an absolutely incredible tool for uncovering digital deception. Let's go back to our librarian analogy. The standard info timestamps, the SIA, are what you and I see in Windows. Think of them as the last checked out date on a library card. It gets updated all the time, and with the right tools, it's actually pretty easy to change. But then you have the file name timestamps, the FNA. These are hidden from the user. They're like the permanent date acquired stamp inside the library book itself. They're set when the file is first created, and they are very difficult to change.
So let that sink in. What happens if an investigator finds that a file's last modified date is actually earlier than its created date? Well, that's just physically impossible. You can't modify a library book before the library even acquired it. A mismatch like this is a huge, flashing red light.
It's a dead giveaway that someone's been tampering with the evidence.
And this is exactly how people trying to cover their digital tracks get caught. Someone will use a tool to change the visible timestamp, the SIA, to create a false alibi. But here's the fatal flaw in their plan. Those tools often only change the easy-to-reach SIA timestamp. They don't touch the hidden FNA one. So all a forensic analyst has to do is compare the two, spot the impossible timeline, and the lie is completely exposed.
Mismatched timestamps are just one type of digital ghost an investigator can find. But trust me, the rabbit hole goes way deeper. There are other places where echoes of past activity can linger, long after a user thinks they've covered their tracks.
Take the log file, for instance. It's like a journal that the file system keeps for itself to make sure everything is stable. And get this, even after a file is deleted and its main MFT record is gone, fragments and references to that file can hang out in this log for a very long time, like a faint digital echo of something that's no longer there.
Okay, but what about hiding files that haven't even been deleted? One of the sneakiest tricks is to use something called alternate data streams. It's basically a way to attach one file to another, making it totally invisible.
Here's a perfect example. On the left, we've got a normal folder with Notepad. Looks totally harmless. But on the right, look what a forensic tool reveals. A malicious file, a rootkit designed to give an attacker control, has been secretly attached to Notepad. It's piggybacking on it. It is completely invisible to a normal user, but it could be running in the background. It's the digital equivalent of a secret compartment.
So, from deleted files that aren't really gone, to timestamps that tell conflicting stories, to malicious files hiding in plain sight, it all points to one big conclusion. In the digital world, the past is never really gone, and it's nearly impossible to completely erase your tracks.
Which kind of leaves us with a final thought, doesn't it? Every single action we take on a computer leaves behind some kind of trace, a digital breadcrumb. So if every click leaves a mark, what story is your computer waiting to tell?